The Great Dance Hall Fire remains one of the most devastating events in the history of West Plains, Missouri. The tragic fire which occurred at the West Plains Dance Hall claimed the lives of over 70 people, many of whom were young adults and teenagers. It occurred on Friday the 13th, a superstitious date, of April 1928. The tragedy is one that's origins are still debated and whose memory local residents still mourn. On the night of November 29, 1927, the West Plains Dance Hall was hosting a popular social gathering. The venue, located on the second floor of a building in the heart of the town, was a popular place for the community's young people. However, disaster struck when a fire was likely caused by a spark from the garage below, which was filled with gasoline and vehicles being worked on. With only one staircase leading to and from the second floor, the fire spread quickly, trapping many people inside. The structure was a wooden building which fueled the flames, and the lack of exits made escape nearly impossible. Reports indicate that many of the victims perished from smoke inhalation, burns, or falls from windows as they tried to escape. Some survivors recall trying to jump from the windows or crawl across ledges, but the majority of those inside were unable to escape the building. Many of the victims were teenagers and young adults who had families in West Plains. 19 died during the initial explosion, and a funerary service was held, but a total of 39 died from injuries during and after the explosion. The fire made international news despite being localized to a small town. The event devastated the local community, and the grief that followed was profound. Families were destroyed overnight. I was able to acquire an interview with two local community members who remember the fire and its immediate aftermath. The first is Chuck Myers, who is 68, and the second is Joe Spears, who just turned 100 this last month and would have been a first-hand witness to the fire itself.
I know they had to rebuild the town several times. How did it change over the years that you can remember?
Well, one thing that happened was at where the old Echo Club used to be, there was a tavern there. And a gas leak or something, and blew it up. It killed a lot of people here in town. That was when I was just a little bitty guy. Yeah, it's that, you know where if you go up Porter Wagner, top of the hill on the right hand side there, where I guess where Denny's is at, and that's our old barber shop is. That's where the Echo Club used to be. I don't know what it was called when it blew up. It was a different one, but they built it back right there in the same spot. And but it blew up, killed a bunch of people.
Big memorial for them. They got a big memorial down at the cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't that for the dance hall?
It was a dance hall. It was
The dance hall explosion.
Yeah, it was a dance hall, but it's a tavern. I mean, they said alcohol, and they had live bands and stuff.
You made that there? Yeah.
But yeah.
Did they ever figure out how it happened?
They thought it was a gas leak, I think, what they said. But it killed several people.
Well, it sounds like an explosion. It lifted the roof completely. And it collapsed on the people.
But to knock people 3 blocks away? And how far out of town did you say you were and you heard it?
We lived 10 miles away and heard it, yes.
So what would make an explosion that big?
I don't know. But there was gasoline stored in the building.
Just regular gasoline?
Yes. I assume it was regular gasoline. It was part of the garage.
Yeah. That just blows my mind. Something, that big of an explosion.
Well, it would have been contained inside of 4 buildings.
Yeah.
So all of the force would go straight up to start with, I guess.
Yeah.
And Atterbury's was on the north side of the square, right by the side of where the West Plains Bank is now.
Okay. Edward B. Toller and Aubrey W. Landis were working late at Kellett Landis Abstract office on the square.
I knew both of them.
Now, was that where, right there on the corner across the street from West Plains Bank?
No, it was right by the side of the Atterbury 5 and 10s.
Okay. Did I tell you they've put a fence there now?
No, I did not know that.
Where, it burned again, right where that building was.
No, I didn't know it.
And now they've put a fence up.
There is little information about a lot of the victims of the dance hall fire. One of the victims that we do have a plethora of information about, though, is Mary Catherine McFarland. Partially remembered for her influence in the community, she was a business owner in a time whenever few women were even involved in the workforce. How she ended up becoming a business owner came from her husband, Ray McFarland. She married into the McFarland Undertaking Company in West Plains, and then she ended up working there as a female embalmer. She was one of the first women in Missouri licensed in embalming. Her father-in-law was the founder of the company. However, after he passed away, it passed to her husband. But only 3 weeks later, her husband passed away too, which left her as the sole owner of the company. Under her, the business thrived. She even ended up opening a clothing store that was advertised to embalmers. So people who had family members that were going to be going to the funeral parlor could go to her store and pick out memorabilia to place them in. Because of this, she got a lot of more recognition in the community and more business towards her funerary home. Her funerary home was also unique in that it offered night and day services and even had the option to have an ambulance bring people to and from it. Now, whenever she died during the dance hall fire, it caused extra confusion because many of the victims were brought to the funeral home that she owned. And since she was left the sole owner, there was little to no management continuing, and so the community struggled a lot with identifying victims and figuring out funerary arrangements while their own management had been killed in the fire. The saddest part of her death was that she left behind a young son. At only 31 years old, she had been a single mother and a single business owner, and left behind a family with nobody to care for them. She's just one of the many people that were victims of this fire who left behind an impact of tragedy in the community. The aftermath of the disaster was marked by confusion, partly due to the death of Billy Drago, who was the manager of the local Western Union office. This was reflected in a report from the Springfield Daily News, which was published 2 days later. The exact cause of the dance hall fire was never officially determined. Many people theorized what could have caused the explosion in the first place, and some theories were more outlandish than others. It's well documented that there were several journalists who were perpetuating these theories, some saying that it could have simply been a gas leak that caused the explosion, while others claimed that there was even the use of dynamite or nitro. A very popular theory was that the owner of the garage underneath the dance hall, J.N. Weiser, was the one who perpetuated the event intentionally. However, there are several problems with these theories. The two leading theories was that he had tried to get an insurance claim by causing a fire to his building, and then the second claim was that he had simply committed suicide. Now, the problem with both of these is the fact that he himself was a victim of the fire. His body was found underneath the rubble with his hand on the doorknob of the garage, implying that had it been intentional, he most likely would not have tried to be there during it unless something accidentally had happened. His wife had also debunked the theory that it was a suicide by saying he had no suicidal ideations. Theories also sprang as far as to people accusing foul play because of so many prominent members of the community being victims of this fire. However, none of this was ever determined. It is likely that the fire itself was simply caused by an accidental reaction between the gasoline in the garage beneath and something causing a spark. However, this too is just speculation. The official cause of the fire was never known and may never be known. The city purchased a new American LaFrance fire truck following the explosion, courtesy of Tony Aid. The new fire department under Chief Jolliffe ran off of 24-hour coverage and service, which eliminated the time previously lost by firemen who had rushed to the station and the time lost that had cost so many lives during the dance hall explosion. The immediate aftermath of the fire was marked by a sense of shock and grief. Families mourned their lost children, and the town came together in its sorrow. Local newspapers such as the West Plains Daily Quill provided extensive coverage of the event, documenting not only the victims but also the community's reaction and the heroic efforts of some of those to save others. The tragedy of the dance hall fire shook the town to its core, and there was widespread public outcry over the lack of safety measures in public venues such as the dance hall. In the weeks and months that followed, fire safety regulations came under greater scrutiny. The West Plains Dance Hall fire was one of the key events that led to broader calls for change in building codes and fire safeties in Missouri. Specifically, this disaster highlighted the need for multiple exits in public buildings, sprinkler systems, and fire-resistant construction materials. While these reforms were not immediate, the tragedy played a key role in the eventual implementation of stronger fire safety laws across the community. A monument is erected in the graveyard with the names of the many victims claimed by the fire. In 1928, the dance hall explosion damaged the old 1883 courthouse beyond repair. Notice the missing windows and disrepair in the background of this photograph of the 1931 senior class hobo day. In December 1933, an allocation from the Civil Works Administration hired men at 35 cents an hour to tear it down. It took 52 men 3 weeks to complete the job. The Flower Sisters is a book by Michelle Collin Anderson about 3 young women from West Plains, Missouri, who were among the survivors of the tragic dance hall explosion. They became known for their heroism during the disaster, as they were able to escape the fire and later helped to rescue others. Their story is often highlighted as a testament to the bravery and strength of ordinary people in the face of such an event. The sisters, Mayflower, Della Flower, and Nellie Flower, were at the West Plains Dance Hall on the night of the explosion. When the fire broke out, the girls, along with many others, found themselves trapped in the building. As the fire spread rapidly, panic ensued. Despite the chaos and smoke, the Flower Sisters managed to find a way to escape the burning building. Their actions in the midst of the disaster helped save several lives, as they assisted others in getting out of the building and avoiding the worst of the fire. After the explosion, the Flower Sisters' quick thinking and bravery were widely acknowledged in the local press. The media highlighted how they were able to remain calm during the chaos and help others be safe. Their story became a symbol of the heroism of those who survived, and the public recognized their courage and resourcefulness during the event. Sadly, the Flower Sisters themselves are fictionalized characters meant to represent people who did actually survive the dance hall fire. The town of West Plains is also changed in the book to the name of a different one to avoid any specific outcallings. Another book that was written over the fire is The West Plains Dance Hall Explosion by Lynn Waterhouse. This book is one of the most well-known and comprehensive works about the explosion. Lynn Waterhouse, a local author and researcher, delves into the historical context of the disaster. She offers detailed accounts of the explosion, the community's response, and the lingering questions surrounding the cause of the fire. In interviews, Waterhouse has expressed that her inspiration for writing the book came from her frustration with the fact that the true cause of the explosion was never determined and no one was ever held accountable. Waterhouse's book includes survivors' interviews and presents a vivid, emotional retelling of the event, which had a profound impact on the town of West Plains. There is also a mural created by Eden Woolsey called The Great West Plains Explosion. This mural is part of a series of murals that he did commemorating the events of West Plains and its history. The next work being shown is a song written in 1928 by Vernon Dalhart and Carson Robinson called The West Plains Explosion. It is about the explosion that took place in West Plains, and the song's old enough that it's in the public domain, so I'm able to play it for you now.
In the little town of West Plains, in old Missouri State, was in the month of April, they saw the hand of fate. The springtime flowers were blooming, the world was bright and gay, and no one dreamed that danger would come to them that day. Was there the young folks gathered one fatal Friday night, and to the dance they wandered with hearts so gay and light. and there they spent the evening with not a thought of fear. For nothing came to warn them that death was drawing near. The dance was nearly over, the evening nearly past, when from the floor beneath them there came an awful blast. The building all around them came tumbling to the ground, and though they fought and struggled, the hot flames beat them down. How quick the scene was shifted from one so gay and bright. How hard the brave men struggled to save their friends that night. How sad the tears of loved ones who came at break of dawn to see the great disaster where 40 lives had gone. We can't explain the reason these awful things must come, but we should all be ready to say thy will be done. And though our hearts are weary, our burdens hard to bear, we have one consolation, we'll meet them over there.
The Great Dance Hall Fire remains a defining event in the history of West Plains, Missouri. The disaster, which claimed the lives of over 70 people, forever changed the town and its residents. The fire, which erupted at the West Plains Dance Hall on April 13, 1928, is remembered not only as an immense loss of life, but also for the profound impact that it had on the community and on the public safety regulations in the years that followed. The grief and anger of the community brought about many theories to try and understand why such a loss occurred. Conspiracy theories ranging as far as sabotage went out. However, no definitive causes were ever determined in the fire itself. Though the tragedy took place nearly a century ago, its memory still resonates with those who were affected, and the grief of the families who lost loved ones continues to be felt by that community. In the wake of the tragedy, the town of West Plains came together in a collective effort to honor the victims. Monuments and memorials were erected, and works such as songs and books were created to keep the memory of the event alive.